Other questions from the room? Yep, one right here in the front.
There's no shortage of problems in healthcare, and now that you're kind of getting under the hood in healthcare, how do you see Foundry transforming that whole industry across the different hospitals, across the whole spectrum?
Well, thanks to the great work of two people are here and others, where we power, I think, 13% of hospital beds in the US. Those use cases are super intricate. If you just look at Foundry, the use cases are optimization. How do you take scarce resources and disperse them in the most financially beneficial but also ethical way? You have 1 million hospital beds, you have 1.5 million patients. Who gets them under what conditions? That's both economic and philosophical, moral implications and legal implications that you can deal with in Foundry. You also, in the hospital industry, and this is before you begin to integrate AI, you have highly trained workers, nurses, doctors, that need to be involved in the judgment chain. And so how do you do that and then do it systematically is a classic Foundry problem. I think you're also going to see that given the way we can manage data in a completely transparent way and show the transforms, meaning how the data is joined in a transparent way, that industry is going to be ideal for Palantir and AI, simply because certain optimization and knowledge-based transfer issues, so not everything a nurse understands or a doctor understands should be transferable to an AI, but some precursor decisions that can be evaluated should be, just in the same way in other contexts you identify and then have a handover to a human. But that can only be done under the condition that you can actually see how that was done, even simply for legal, ethical, and reputational reasons. And you also have, the other reason why software is so important in that industry is it's margin challenged. So if you have a margin challenged, meaning the industry, or a resource challenged industry, that is with complicated engineering and societal variables, that is something you need software for. And that's why our software has been so impactful during the COVID epidemic, why it's I mean, we barely had software sales into the hospital industry a year ago. It's just going like that. But it's going to, you will see where you begin to integrate. It's going to be very hard for other people to get in. Our product's ideally suited for that plus AI, because just purely, one of the big concerns in the hospital is litigation. So it's like, I brought this patient in. Okay, great. Well, you're going to get sued either way, but like you need to be able to show, well, this is exactly how the decision was made based on these data sets. That requires a branching architecture, ACLs, an ability to do this transparently, ability to show how the data was organized, meaning the transforms. And then if you're running AI on top of it, you're going to have to be able to unpack that in court, which we do natively. And then one of the valuable things for us, besides helping hospitals, which is incredibly valuable and gratifying, and my father's a doctor, so finally might get some respect at home, is that it is a much more intricate, difficult use case than people realize outside that industry, and it highlights where a product works and where it works and where it doesn't. So we also have a vested interest, because we can show off, okay, these are the very complicated issues that, by the way, you're also going to have if you're building an engine or drilling for oil and gas, or if you're doing pharmaceuticals, or if you are building water plants, or if you are doing really anything that involves the convergence of complicated engineering and regulation, which is basically every industry in this country. But this one particularly highlights it, partly because of the challenges on the resources, and partly because of the ongoing litigation challenges. Oh,
We'll just repeat the question for everyone else.
Right. First of all, I'll try not to embarrass Ganesh, who's our representative. In your perspective, which is the biggest deciding person in the C-suite to deploy Palantir's technology? The CFO, the Chief Innovation Officer, the Chief Digital Officer, the Chief Technology Officer? Who is the belly button really pushing you guys across the line inside a culture that's not ready for the
Just to repeat the question for those listening to the stream, the question was, putting aside the remark about Ganesh, a colleague of ours, who's the main person in the C-suite that you think is the
well,
person?
no, I think that part of it is like, say there's resistance in the org. But the real answer is it just depends on the org. You know, we have partners here where the CEO wants to get involved in that, in technical decisions. We have partners. We just need somebody who has the authority, if they see value, to push quickly. And so in some orgs, that's the CFO, actually, surprise. In some orgs, that's the CEO. Usually it honestly ends up being a coalition of like somebody who's got credibility. By the way, sometimes it's not in the C-suite. I mean, I see this all the time. We got our company off the ground because special operators went to the generals and said, yeah, you may not like that guy, but he's bringing us home safely. And the generals were like, yeah, I don't like that guy, but if you bring him home safely, I will buy your software. So, and that's a classic Palantir. The AI thing has just shifted this, though. It's like a year ago, the answer would have been, 2 years ago, it would have been CEO or it doesn't work. A year ago, it's like mostly CEO. Last time we did this conference, I guess it was a couple months ago, would have been like 70-30. Now, we have just a lot of very technical people in the technical part of organizations saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I have these 5 highly technical questions, which are largely, you know, you'll see it being answered, but come down to, you know, safety, security, understanding the limits of LLMs, understanding where they have to be augmented, those kind of questions. And if you can answer those questions and more importantly show it, they're off to the races. So it really, really depends. And it also depends geography to geography. One of the things that's made America very successful for us is more people can make these decisions. So when we're in Europe, it really has had to come from the C-suite, and then we've had a lot of resistance. Then you also see, even in government, there's huge differences. Special operations works different than intel, which works different than military. And in some of these cases, it's very disparate. You can work with one part, and the other part you can't work with. But again, you know, we constantly get asked by experts, meaning I probably shouldn't say this, but I could have built a business, I should have built a business, I could have gone to a hedge fund, but now I am an expert on software analysis and I rate the software products and decide how valuable they are for Wall Street, right? And they always want to know how big is the TAM. And it's actually quite hard to calculate it for us, but one of the things that has made the TAM much bigger in the US is more people can decide to say yes, much more. And in the AI context, it's really, since we're on the frontier, and everyone knows we're on the frontier, it's, one of the really cool things is, it's the first time I've seen a market, maybe since we built our Intel product, where everybody knows we're on the frontier, and therefore it's like, okay, there's no playbook. This really helps us, because when there's a playbook, maybe we disagree with the playbook, which we often do. Like, software needs to do these 4 things to fit into our architecture, or we're not going to buy it. Right? So that's really slowed Foundry growth down, because we actually have a different view. Our view is that it should be category defining, meaning you should be able to answer these questions independent of what an expert says software should be like. Because someday you are going to have to ask and answer and write to your enterprise under difficult conditions, questions that you're not asking and answering tomorrow. And you're going to have to be able to do it in a way that's not just data science, but is algorithmic. We've always thought that. But that was, we lost a lot of those battles. And even though Foundry grew 67% last year, in a world that was more frontier, probably would have grown 3x of that. And so now in the AI context, there really is no playbook of how it should look. People just want it to work. And that's again, one of the main reasons, we've had more inbound for Palantir in the last couple of weeks than we had all last year. And it's precisely because the playbook is out the door. Everyone knows this could be very valuable if implemented correctly. Everyone knows if it's not implemented correctly, you're going to get some poetry, and it's going to be expensive, or it could, yeah. So that's very different.
Great. Thank you all for the questions. I think this is a great introduction of what we're talking about here and what that frontier will look like. Any other closing remarks?
Thank you for coming. For those of you new to Palantir, you've picked a great time to come. We've never had a vibe this good. It's been pretty good in the past, but it's not like this. So, I hope you enjoy being here as much as I enjoy having you here, and hope to see you soon.